And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand, sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
We're getting there, Bobby. We're getting to the Super Bowl years. Be patient.
Yeah,
Be patient.
well, maybe next year.
It's going to take a little while. Yes. We're slowly going week by week, folks, as we break down every season from 1981, when they made their first playoff appearance as a wild card, all the way up to the present day. I guess we'll see where we're at during, all those weeks, how close we get to the series. Of course, we'll have a draft special. We'll have all that stuff with the Giants as the draft gets here. Maybe we'll do something on the combine too. We'll definitely talk about both of them anyway. So welcome to the Big Blues Brothers show. And of course, I'm the Mac Man with Big Bobby G. And we're here every week, every Monday at 5 p.m., giving you the best in Giants history, the best in Giants trivia, the best in Giants news. I mean, there's no other show out there like us. We've been lifelong Giant fans for at least 50 years. So, I mean, Bobby a little longer, maybe 60 or 70. But, so anyway, he'll run in. He might know a little bit more than me. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking, brother. So, anyway.
I know. I'll let it go.
Thank you. So, we'll start out with a trivia question for today, Bobby. I got to give you the Giants trivia question. And, I'm not sure if you know the whole story behind this even, but we'll get to that when I give you the answer. So we don't want to do that. It won't be impossible for Bobby. Bobby should be able to get it. I mean, come on, let's be honest.
I don't know. I'm thinking I'm 0 for 2 the last couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, you've been not doing too well.
Yeah.
So the trivia question for today, Bobby, is who leads the Giants in career interceptions all time? Who has the most interceptions for the New York Giants in their career? So it's an interesting question. I mean, there are a few that you could guess from, I would imagine, in the past and closer to today. So we'll leave that hanging out there until the end of the show. So I want to start with the 1982 season. As we're going 1981 we started. 1982, Bobby, was not a great year for football. I mean, I think it was something the players had to do. I mean, I think they had to get kind of on par, and really the players union of the NFL is maybe one of the weakest union in sports. They really try to get along with the owners and Roger Goodell today. Since Gene Upshaw, I think if I'm not mistaken, was the president at one time. They kind of deal with the NFL. They're not jerks. So I mean, they're pretty I want to see they're pretty fair when it comes to negotiations. But in 1982, strike happens. Teams that walk off the field after a Monday night game. Nobody reports to practice anymore. Some coaches supported the players. Others, GMs and owners and coaches weren't happy with the situation. I know the Philadelphia Eagles, they were actually, they had the scabs. Is that what the right term is for people? Yeah. They were breaking and they were throwing rocks at the buses. And I mean, it got pretty violent and there were arrests made. So anyway, if I'm not mistaken, Bobby, wasn't it the Redskins and the Dolphins that ended up in the Super Bowl that year? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, and the Redskins would go on to win that game. And it wasn't
Right.
It wasn't called the playoffs because they expanded the amount of teams in the playoffs that year. I want to say it was 14 or 16 teams. It was a lot of teams. And they called it the tournament, the Super Bowl tournament.
Okay.
And it was the season itself was crazy. The season started, only 2 games were played. Actually, coincidentally, the last Monday night game was a Giants game. And after that game was over, they decided they're going to go on strike. The person representing the players' union was a lawyer from Washington, D.C. named Garvey. His first name escapes me. But he had this number chiseled in his head of 55% of the revenue. And the owners did not want to hear it. It was also the first time that the players' union and the players were able to look at the owners' books. So they actually saw how much money they were making. And they saw they weren't getting a fair share of the pie. You mentioned the baseball union was very strong back in the day. I mean, they struck through the 70s and got their players what they wanted.
Yes.
Even professional basketball was what had a better union, even though the revenue stream in basketball wasn't as strong as it was in football at that time. Now, baseball had a very strong revenue base back then. Very popular sport. Different time. The 80s were a different time. Early 80s were coming out of the 70s. There was, baseball was king at that particular time. Right. But with the Steelers winning some Super Bowls and the Cowboys winning some Super Bowls, football gradually became growing, really climbing that ladder of where they are now is the number one revenue generating sport in America. But that time, baseball was.
Agreed. Yeah.
So there was a struggle there too. But once they looked at the books, they wanted to get their fair share. Now, the Giants had a nondescript year that year, just real quickly. They lost their first 2 games. It was a 9-game season, so every team just played 9 games. The Giants would end up being 4-5 on the year, missing the playoffs after the year before, really making a great run, beating the Dallas Cowboys, getting into the tournament, as Bill Parcells liked to call it, and winning a game. And then the following year, I was excited as all can be. I'm sure you were too, because we're coming off a playoff berth. Our pieces are in place, and then the strike hits.
Yeah.
So what did the players really get out of that in 82? Well, they did get revenue, so they got their revenue that they wanted. They got a bump in the pension. They also got more money for playoff games and Super Bowl games. And they also got more money when it came to like off season or when training camp started. You do get paid, not your salary. People don't understand this. When training camp happens, you don't get your salary till the first game happens. Right. But so you're paid a nominal fee back then during training camp. So yes, they got a big boost in training camp money at that particular time. Those are really the high points. And it kind of planted the seeds though of free agency, because that's what they really wanted. They wanted that big piece. And I think as we go to the next strike, I think free agent, was it plan A and plan B? I forget what they were called, but we could talk about that in a couple of weeks. But this particular strike did plant that seed of free agency, and that was ultimately what the players wanted, along with their revenue. They wanted more revenue from the owners, and they wanted their freedom to be able to move around the NFL like they saw their fellow baseball players moving around from, back in the day, baseball players were moving like crazy, making millions of dollars, whether you were a pitcher or an outfielder, whatever you might have been at the top of your game. And the NFL players were not getting that type of luxury that their fellow baseball players, professional baseball players, were getting. So 82 season was strange, but the biggest part of the 82 season is the strike itself, and the tournament, and they called it the tournament, the Super Bowl tournament. And as you said, Washington did end up winning it that particular year too.
So
Giants did miss the playoffs.
Our roster kind of looked like this. We had Butch Woolfolk. I met his niece one time. He was like a all-purpose back. He wasn't a big guy. He kind of caught the ball out of the backfield. He was a cutter. He was a rookie. We still had Rob Carpenter. We still had Ernest Gray. Wide receiver Johnny Perkins. At the time, Scott Bruner was our starting quarterback. Tight end Tom Milady. Defense, we had Curtis McGriff and Bill Neal was our nose guard. Believe it or not, our defensive end for that year was Phil Tabor. I don't know if George Martin was hurt or he was, something happened where he didn't get as much playing time as he did the year before. But of course, he went on to become our starting defensive end again. We still had the Crunch Bunch. We had Van Pelt, we had Kelly, Taylor, and of course Lawrence Taylor. Mark Hayes was our left cornerback. Terry Jackson was our right cornerback. Beasley Reese was still our free safety, and Bill Courier was our strong safety. The Pro Bowl selections that year, they still had a Pro Bowl, were Carson, Taylor, and was Mark Hayes. So those were the three Pro Bowlers from that year, and of course they were on the defensive side of the ball. The biggest thing to me wasn't the strike as much affecting the Giants as much it was losing their head coach. Ray Perkins, who had just brought them to the playoffs the year before as a wild card. And as you said, Bobby, I'm thinking, hey, we got a foundation. We're gonna get better next year, as I thought when we went to the playoffs a few years ago. I'm thinking we're gonna do better, and we don't do better. We do worse. And Ray Perkins ends up leaving the Giants at the end of the season, going to Alabama. And we discussed this before the show. I know you want to go coach at your old alma mater. I mean, some coaches do, maybe not all, but he did. He's replacing a legend, which I don't like being the first coach to replace a legend. I want to be the guy after the first guy. I could compare it to something else, but I would get thrown off the air right now. I want to be the second. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be the first. So anyway, I think it was a mistake for him to go back, and I think if I'm not mistaken, he did come back to the NFL and was a coordinator or.
He was off coordinator.
Yeah, but I mean, he gave up. Huh?
I don't remember. I think it was with the Lions, I believe. I could be wrong.
I'm not 100% sure, but I seem to remember reading something about it. And listen, he had a great head coaching job. He was a winner. They would have stuck with him another couple of years. There's no doubt. That's the way it was back then. And instead, he ends up leaving, and the following year, Bill Parcells becomes the head coach. And we're going to talk about him in our when we talk about coaches a little bit. So I want to get your opinion. George Young's the GM, and George Young built this Giants team through the draft. He really did. He went out, he had some great drafts. They really didn't do free agency until O.J. Anderson was probably their biggest free agent pickup, I think you could say. But he really built this team through the draft. In 82, there wasn't a lot of guys he drafted. I mean, it was 81, 82. They got a couple linemen, and they really didn't get the Joe Morris and that, which they do get later, and the Carl Banks, which they do get later. But the Giants seemed to fall off, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I really wasn't in 83.
So, George's philosophy, and I remember him saying it many times, he wanted to draft elephants. So he felt that, the bigger you were, the harder you are to beat. And the bigger you are, the more wins you're going to be, because he liked the bully teams. So he was your quintessential building a team from the inside out. So it was funny when you're thinking about the 82 season, and maybe that's for the 82 draft. I didn't. I probably should have looked that up to see who we picked. But I'll bet you we picked a couple linemen in that draft.
We did.
Who probably went on to play for us for a number of years. That wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't be surprised either if we picked up some defensive linemen. You mentioned defensive end who played. Now, I don't know how long he's on the roster, but it wouldn't surprise me if we picked up some defensive players in that particular draft. I don't know if he was looking for the skill players because Butch Wolfwick was already he was a first round draft pick, very good skill position player. Ernest Gray was a good skill position player. They didn't throw the ball a lot back then. You mentioned. Right. Melody, I'm probably saying his name wrong. He was an efficient tight end, not a great tight end, but an efficient big tight end who could not only catch, but he could block. So he fit the mold of a George Young type of tight end. Mark Bavaro would come a few years later, same type of mold in the third round in the 84 draft, I believe it was. But so it wouldn't shock me if he did bring some people in 82. They just weren't the household names that you're going to hear for the glamour position, the running back, the wide receiver, maybe certainly not the quarterback. And it was funny because at 82 also, Bill Parcells' his first year, and I could be wrong, but doesn't he go with Scott Bruner as his starting quarterback?
Well, 82 wasn't his first year. I think 83. There was a problem. There was a problem between
83 was. I'm sorry. You're right. 83 was.
There was a problem.
I'm ahead of myself.
Sims actually went to George Young and said, "Listen, if you're not going to play me, trade me."
That's right.
And he got the GM involved in it. And lo and behold, of course, Sims began starting again, but he was injured. I mean, it wasn't like Phil Sims was. He was injured off and on, and he had his problems. But an injured Phil Sims is a lot better than a healthy Scott Bruner, that's for sure. So,
I agree. I agree.
So anyway,
because Bill's first year is 83, so Perkins is still the coach in 82. It's a strike shortened season, my friend. We were just talking about that before we came on the air. Maybe he got a sour taste in his mouth, wondering why he went back to Alabama. Maybe the NFL wasn't his cup of tea. He saw maybe the business side of it, and it wasn't the football coaching side of it. And that might have been a factor. Hey, maybe I'll go home. I love Bear Bryant. I believe he played for Bear Bryant in college, and he was going home to really hopefully pick up the baton from the man who he had the utmost respect for as a football coach.
I mean, and you think about it too, Bobby. I mean, college football, it was really coaching, right? You're really coaching in college football. Today's different, right? Today it's almost professional football. You're recruiting as much as you're coaching. But in the NFL, right, you got your coaches that, they come from college. You would expect them, especially back then, to know how to play football because that's what all it was. A little different today. Again, today, they're throwing them in there in their first year and they're not really coached. You get a kid up based off his athleticism. You throw him out there. You throw the ball up in there. He goes and catches it, or you hand the ball off to it and he runs like crazy. The basics of football are not taught like they were a long time ago in college. So it's a different thing. And even back then, pro and college totally different. I mean, and you got some coaches like Nick Saban who came up to coach pro, and other coaches that came up to coach pro couldn't handle it. Because you're coaching men instead of kids, right? The men are a little bit different than the kids. They don't, yay, rah, rah, Cleveland Browns. They don't do that much, right? They'll do that for Alabama, but not for Cleveland too much. So anyway, really interesting stuff. I thought 82, again, was the beginning, really, of football becoming a business. So let's go to our coaching update here in history. The next one up is the big tuner. A lot of people think that Bill Parcells got the name Big Tuna because he was a big guy and he ate a lot and maybe he liked tuna fish sandwiches. That wasn't it. He was the kind of guy that was always meticulous when he was a coach. Everything had to be a certain way. And when he was a basketball coach, which he was as well as a football coach, And as you said, he was associated with Bobby Knight. He would take a radio and he would go to different parts of the gymnasium and try to get this music on for the team. I mean, he'd go from window to window to window. Of course, the guys loved it. And, I mean, this is part of what Bill Parcells was. Everything had to be just so. He had a routine that he did every day, right? He went to the same place. Very, very superstitious, right? He had to go to the same diner. Elephants had to have their trunks up. This had to be this. He had to drive a certain way to work to the stadium every day. Yeah. I mean, this guy was totally superstitious. His pregame was the same way every time he went on the field. And I did a lot of research on Bill Parcells. Really unique guy. His father did not want him coaching football. He wanted to be a lawyer. He ended up in a construction outfit out in Denver, ended up going to watch the Denver games, all their home games, sit there with his friend and complain about the Broncos and, what they were doing wrong. And of course, he ended up getting back into football. First, I think, with the Patriots, then with the Giants, back to the Patriots and back to the Giants. But, I mean, you could tell the way he was that everything had to be so. And if you look at any football player, great basketball player, great baseball player, great coach, they all have their quirks. And it always kind of has to be the same way about it.
Yeah. No, he was an interesting character. As a high school player, you look at Bill now, and when I used to watch him on the sidelines, you see this kind of roly-poly type of guy, and you're not sure if he was an athlete or or just always a coach. But in high school, he lettered in football, basketball, and baseball. Yes. He was so good at baseball, the Philadelphia Phillies drafted him. Yes. He was a freshman in college. That's the kind of athlete he was. He played in college. He played linebacker and offensive lineman. The Detroit Lions drafted him in the 7th round as a lineman. So he goes to Detroit. And this is funny because Parcells was known for his practices that were really hard-nosed, in the heat, full pads, double sessions. For those who don't understand double sessions, that's two hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, full pads. He didn't care. But as Bill Parcells, the player, he's in Detroit, and it's a hot summer day. He decides it's too hot to play football. Yeah. He doesn't want to play football anymore. So he wants to coach football. That's how he became a coach. He actually resigns from the Detroit Lions because it's too hot and a hot summer practice. I mean, if you're a player for him, I don't know if they knew that or not. But I know if I was a player for him, and some of the characters he had his team, from Carson to Taylor, to Jim Burt, I'm sure I would have been reminding him that every time there was an August day that was 95 degrees, and he had me in full pads. So that was very interesting.
I mean, I could see some backroom one-on-one, but I don't think you're going to make fun of him in front of everybody. No. I don't think you're going to do that. No. Carson came to the Giants when he was drafted as defensive end. He was one of the best defensive ends I can't remember what college he went to. I think it was Division II. He led he was an All-American, led the team in sacks. I think he had 8.5 sacks, and they moved him to middle linebacker. And what Carson said about Bill Parcells was that he would tear you down and rebuild you. Yeah. You thought you were all that and more. And he said he would just tear you down and rebuild you again. And a lot of players that I talked to said the same thing. He wanted a certain type of player, and it was no nonsense. Byron told me. Byron used to be on the show a lot. Byron Williams, a wide receiver for the Giants. Everybody that was on his first year I shouldn't say first year, 1984, because 83. He kind of tried to be a coach he wasn't. 84, he comes back. Everybody that was on injured reserve was sent home. Nobody, and until you got better. And then maybe you didn't come back. So they had a lot of people on injured reserve that were at the camp. They weren't working out. They weren't doing nothing. Parcells threw them all out and said, go home. And that's the kind of coach he was. You were there to play football. And if you're too hurt to play, go home. And that's, 84 is when he really established himself, because 83 kind of had a rough season.
He did have a tough season next week.
Yeah, it was even worse than the 82 season. But, and we could talk about it. I mean, when he came out, he tried to be like Ray Perkins, right? He tried to be a friendly coach. He listened to all their problems and nonsense. In 1984, we went to see George Young because they were thinking about moving on from him to Bill Armsvarger, I think it was at the time. One of those coaches.
Schlesinger from Miami.
Thank you, Miami. I knew it was Miami. He was going to move on for him, and he said, listen, I wasn't me last year. I'm going to be a lot different this year, and they gave him another shot. And in 1984, he kind of started turning around where they ended up going 9-7, and finally up the chain. One of the only two coaches to have a Super Bowl, 2 Super Bowls. A lot of people didn't like his way outside the Giants. Media really didn't like him. A lot of GMs. I had George Young and him went at it constantly. I mean, after he won the 1986 Super Bowl, he wanted to go to Atlanta to be the GM and coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah. And George Young made him honor his contract.
He did.
And he ended up staying with the Giants, of course, until 91 when they won the Super Bowl again. Went on, of course, to coach for the Patriots and the Jets and those teams made him the Jets and the Patriots championship teams. But a lot of fans don't like the way he left them. A lot of people had problems with the way he left their teams.
I did personally when he left in 1990. I did. So I understand that. I really understand what fans may think about him. I remember him being interviewed on Mike and the Mad Dog show in New York City when he was becoming the Patriots coach. Or maybe it was the Jets coach. I think it was the Jets coach because he left the Patriots to go to the Jets in a kind of a crazy way. They hired Bill Belichick, and then they were hiring Parcells as a consultant, if you remember. And that's how he got to the Jets, and they did some things, and there were some draft picks that were given up and so forth before he became the head coach of the Jets. But I remember him being interviewed, and Mad Dog Russo said to him, "What do you say to the fans who think you're more of a," and I think he used the word carpetbagger,
right?
Who just come in and then you just decide to leave whenever you want to. And he took exception to that. I remember listening to the show. He took exception to that. And fans were upset. And I think the reason why Russo said that is he got a lot of calls from Giants fans when he left the Giants in 1990. And there was a lot of upset Giants fans because, he said he retired for health reasons and he'd come back in a couple of years, and it was health reasons again. He'd come back. One was, I think he was on open heart surgery. That was one of the reasons he left too. Right. So it just seemed, and I don't know, I can't speak for the Patriot fans or the Jets fans, but I know the fan bases you mentioned were not happy with his departure from their teams, and they felt slighted by Bell. And, I think that's be a stigma that maybe is following around until this day.
Yeah, if you think about it, you're at the Super Bowl with the Patriots. You've been talking to the Jets all week about taking the head coaching job. Yeah. Even that day, Bill Belichick was mad at him. What are you doing? We're getting ready to play a Super Bowl. The Patriots are up at halftime. He's talking to the Jets. And, you can't – I guess you can, but you really can't do both, right? You're either all in or you're not. And Bill Belichick sandbagged Parcells because Parcells, as you said, thought he was going to go there, be sort of the director of personnel or consultant or GM. And here goes Belichick. Belichick is like, I'm tired of being under your shadow. I talked to Robert Kraft, called me. I'm done. Yeah, I think it was a 1-minute press conference.
Well, that was when he left the Jets because he kind of handpicked Belichick to become the next Jets head coach. And that's when what you said then transpired and said, he kind of gave him the middle finger and said, I'm going to go up to New England.
And of course, the Jets GM really wanted him to be the coach anyway. He didn't want Belichick. He wanted Parcells. Parcells was a hot coach, right? I mean, Belichick did his thing. He was a great defensive coordinator. He didn't do too well at Cleveland, so he wasn't really the hot coach. Parcells was, and of course, Parcells turns them around, and they're all of a sudden they're in the championship playing Denver. So a great coach. Did it with different teams. I think maybe he's the first coach. I don't know, Bobby, but maybe other coaches did it before him. He's the first coach I'm aware of that took his coaches and players with him. He liked
to do that. Yes.
Yeah, Pepper Johnson, Bill Belichick, Ron Earhart, let's all go. And he kind of did that. Curtis Martin, I know he did that with too. And players.
Romeo Crennel, Charlie Weiss, who both would end up with Bill Belichick. In their glory runs to bring the Patriots to a level that has never been seen in the NFL, and they were all three of those gentlemen were disciples of the Parcells tree that really built the Patriots and what they would become. And of course, Tom Brady helped, but they would, they were kind of the core of the pieces, and when they would also try to go on to be head coaches, and with not the success that they had with the Giants or with the Patriots. One thing Parcells did, and it's still done today, is when he became the Dallas Cowboys coach. I don't know if you remember this. If you're drafted or you're signed as a free agent and you're not a Cowboy yet, you get your helmet without a star on it.
I don't remember.
And he says you have to earn your stars. So to this, in the ownership, over in Dallas liked it so much, they still do that to this day.
There you go. Yeah, I think I saw. I didn't know Bill Parcells did that, but I thought I saw that on one of the TV shows. Yeah, I thought I saw that.
Yeah.
Another kind of interesting thing with Parcells was he did end up playing against Bill Belichick a couple times.
Yeah.
And those games, I think he lost both, but both were like by 2 points. I mean, they were hell of games. So, and of course, all that bad blood between him and Belichick kind of finally went away. And,
yes.
I mean, they finally got together and became really good friends again, which is good. I mean, Bill Parcells with Bill Belichick was Batman and Robin. I mean, I don't care who you want to say is Batman, who's Robin. I mean, that was one hell of a team, coaching team. Yeah,
it really was. So. No, I mean, and when unfortunately for us, they both left, and I know maybe we'll do a Belichick spotlight, but we let Belichick go for Ray Handley. So let Giants fans let that sink in.
Right. Yes, we did.
And we'll talk about Belichick next time. But
we made some bonehead. We've been making bonehead moves since Coughlin left. I don't know what's happened to the ownership, and we're going to get into some bonehead moves that we made. And of course, you know what I'm talking about. Listen, who holds the record for the most interceptions by a Giant? Hold on, let me do this right, Bobby. I want to do it right. I want to have the music for you. I mean, I don't want to gyp you out of nothing. I mean, I want to make sure, most interceptions.
I'm just going to go with the first name that hit my head. Go ahead, play the music.
I'm good. But I got to get the banner up there right. I mean, listen, this is high tech here, Bobby.
Make sure it's all done right.
Yes, we do. Okay. History is spelt with an R. I'm sure of that. Anyway, so who holds the Giants? I hope this is not monotonous. Who holds the record for the most interceptions in Giants history? we'll put a little music to it so that it makes you sound really good, Bobby. So let's try it. Let's see what we got. All right, Bobby, you're in the spotlight right now. Everybody at home is watching you, and they're saying, "Okay, Bobby G, let's get this."
I'm going to say it was someone we talked about a few weeks back, maybe back in October. A great New York Giant, an outstanding player, a great defensive back, Spider Locker.
No, he did lead the league in interceptions 1 year.
He did a great year. I thought maybe that would be the
right. No, not even close. Tom Landry's not even close. Tom Landry was a defensive back for the Giants for years.
I got to go back. I mean, you're mentioning names. Last week it threw me too. I didn't go back far enough to Frank Gifford, so I got to go. I got to start thinking 60s, 50s,
yes, 40s, yes, 20s. I mean, all the way back.
I'm thinking like 70s when I'm watching Spider play, and I'm a big Spider Lockhart fan, and I'm in the backyard, and I want to be Spider Lockhart.
Yes,
and,
yes.
For number 43, and all that. Jazz.
Yeah. No, it was a Mian Tunnel, Hall of Famer. I hope I'm saying it right. First Giant black player drafted by the Giants. First black player by the Giants.
Nice.
Period.
Nice.
He had over 72 interceptions in his career, Bobby.
What year did he come out?
Oh, he played for a long time for the Giants. Let me see if
must be post World War II.
He played from 1948 to 1958.
Post World War II. Okay.
He also returned kicks and punts and all that. He went to 9 Pro Bowls. So the guy was at it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So a guy that, I mean, I just have things pop in my head. I look him up and it's like, I didn't know Tunnel was that good.
Right? I'd love to do a spotlight on him one day and do a little history, do a little research on him and find out about his background. And probably talking about maybe even a World War II veteran here. And
yeah, he went to he did go to war, and he did go to Toledo College, where he set all kinds of records there in receiving and rushing. He was a running back / deep. I think he played it both ways in college.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, unbelievable player. And again, the first black player the Giants signed. So
how was I going to get that answer?
I figured you would know this, Bobby.
I'm smart, but I'm not that smart.
At 7 interceptions as a rookie. I mean,
wow.
we say 4 interceptions. Like, wow, 7 interceptions as a rookie.
And that's like 12 games.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's almost an interception.
You're going 10 years. You're doing over seven interceptions a year.
That's
pretty good.
That's a lot of interceptions in a very, very shortened season. Not the 17 games that you see today.
Exactly.
Wow.
So
that's
excellent defensive back for the Giants. So let's talk a little playoffs. I mean, I watched the playoffs, Bobby, and sometimes you get stinkers, right? Sometimes you get a team that doesn't belong there. I don't think we've seen that once. I mean, even Houston played tough against Kansas City. Some penalties and some mistakes they didn't make. Maybe they win that game. I mean, it's and the last two with Baltimore. Let's start with Baltimore and Buffalo. Okay. Baltimore beat the hell out of Buffalo on Baltimore. They go to Buffalo, and it seems. I said this to my co-host, and he's like, what are you talking about? It's like there's a curse on the Ravens. And not that I believe in curses, right? I don't believe in the Babe Ruth curse. I don't believe in the GOAT curse of the Cubs. I don't believe in that. But I think certain teams or certain things get in teams' heads. Mm-hmm. They go into a game, And, we've lost 5 consecutive playoff / and a championship game in a row because of some stupid mistakes. Baltimore, to me, is a better team than the Buffalo Bills. To be honest with you, on paper, I think they got a better running back. I think their quarterback is just as good, if not better. I think their defense is better than Buffalo's. I think on paper, Baltimore should have won that game. And if that guy makes the catch for the 2-point conversion, maybe goes overtime, maybe Baltimore wins. But that didn't happen, right? So I believe that this gets in players' heads. You're human. So here you are, Lamar Jackson, who, I've seen throw fits on the field when they lose and stuff. He was a little bit more grown up at the end of last night's game. But
he had some colorful language in the locker room after the game was over.
Did.
That's okay.
He did.
I probably would.
Yes. But I mean, how many years in a row can this happen? And you got to learn to win. And right now,
gonna make plays.
Yes, right, Bob. So I mean, what does Baltimore do? I mean, can they do anything else to improve that team next year? I don't think they can.
No, I mean, well, you talk about a team that didn't punt the ball all day.
Right.
So you don't punt the ball, so that means you're moving the ball in offense. They moved the ball up and down the field. They were their own worst enemy yesterday. It's hard to beat a good team or a good play. Now, this is the playoffs now.
Right.
So everything's more magnified now.
Right.
You go into someone's stadium elements weren't great. You got some snow going and maybe some ice and rain mixed in there too, and you end up with an interception, a fumble, and you miss a 2-point conversion. It's 4 plays. Those 4, in my mind, those 4 plays cost the Ravens the game. Now, you can't coach that away.
No.
You mentioned they're just humans, so it's going to get in your head sooner or later, but you can't. They put themselves in a position to tie the game up at the end of the game, even with all those miscues. So I think you're right. Any team that can put themselves in a position at the end of a game to either win it or send it into overtime by turning the ball over 3 times against a really good Bills team, yeah, maybe they are probably better. They are a better team. They're a better team. Paper on the field, they're a better football team.
No,
sometimes the better teams don't win.
I had some people say, well, they should have ran Derrick Henry again for the 2-point conversion.
I mean, you could. I mean, it's easy to say after.
But the play was successful. He rolls out, he throws the ball, hits him in the hands. I mean, they could have been a fumble too. They could have gone to hand off Derrick Henry, could have been a fumble. I mean, The play was done right. The guy just and nothing. I mean, the tight end he's a great tight end. I'm not taking nothing away from him. But at that time, you dropped the ball, and I know he probably feels like crap, right?
Oh, I'm sure he does.
I would. So
they'll feel that way now until they kick the ball off next September.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't. How can you not? I mean, when we'll talk about some other games, there's some other players who will feel that way too.
Yeah.
That they play here, play there. But really, these games, all of them, and we'll get to dissect a little bit deeper, but all of these games were just 4 or 5 plays.
Yeah.
Make those 4 or 5 plays. Either team could have won either of these games.
I hope he doesn't end up on Ace Ventura one day. The laces were not facing outward. I hope he's not saying, like the ball should have been higher or something. I hope
it doesn't. In the belly.
I hope it doesn't.
It's so fun. It's so fun to talk about these games because I have no rooting interest in any of them.
Right.
So I just want to sit down. As I said to you before we came on, we were talking. I just sit down, have a couple of beers, and have a slice of pizza, and enjoy the game.
Right. Exactly. And if you love football, the games are great. The Rams against the Eagles. Listen, Saquon Barkley's a beast.
Yeah.
He ran for over 200 and something yards. And the Rams were still in the game.
Another game came down to the very end. I know, it's crazy.
Yes. He runs for 200-something yards. Hurts runs for 70 and a touchdown. I mean, it looks like that. It doesn't. I mean, the Eagle fans are singing "Fly, Eagle, Fly" after a touchdown, and all of a sudden the Rams go and score another one, and they shut up really quick. I mean, it was a very good game that the Rams with Stafford could have won.
Especially they could have won the game. They could have won the game. A play here,
Terrible.
A play there, a non-fumble, don't throw an interception. You fumble the ball, the Eagles pick it up, run it back.
Yeah.
There's again 4 or 5 plays in that game.
Terrible.
It was the exact same thing as the Bills and the Ravens. Watching those 2 games mirror, really all of them mirrored each other, except for maybe the Commanders-Lions game was just a shootout. But the other games kind of mirrored each other. That it was just who's going to make a play and who's going to make the mistake.
Right.
And unfortunately, the Rams made more mistakes, even though Barkley was so great as you just said he was. I mean, he's running down, he's sliding, he's scoring touchdowns, he's sliding on the snow. I mean, he's feeling good about himself, and here come the Rams.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that type of game, but it came down to again. Stafford made some plays, but he also made some mistakes. And Hurts made some mistakes. Hurts had a fumble. So I mean, it wasn't that either team didn't make mistakes. Unfortunately for the Rams, they made a couple more than the Eagles did. And that
Kareem Williams, he reminds me of Tiki Barber when he first started. Fumbles way too much. He fumbles. He's got a fumbling problem, and he fumbled big time. I mean, Stafford kind of threw one of the balls at him. It kind of slipped out of his hands, hit off his shoulder pads. I mean, that one wasn't his, but he did fumble, and they were moving the ball down the field too. So it reminds me a lot of Tiki Barber. They've got to work on that. Stafford is up. He's got 2 years left, Bobby. Listen to this. He's only gotten on these 2 years, he's got the $4 million guaranteed bonus, $23 million unguaranteed.
Wow.
So Stafford is going to be talking to the Rams in the offseason.
Yeah.
Still a very, very good quarterback. He may not be in the top 4, but he's right behind him. And I don't know what the Rams are planning on doing. I would imagine they're going to offer him a couple-year contract and boost that money, give him some guaranteed money, because Stafford could go play for a lot of teams right now.
He could. And he could play for a team in New York, too.
He could, definitely.
And I know we're not pegging into it today, but with that third draft pick, I think we're going to be on the outside looking in at the 2 quarterbacks. We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
The Giants might be looking for a Stafford. You mentioned it, a Stafford type of player, a bridge type of quarterback. To draft maybe one of the younger guys to go what you said earlier today. No one sits anymore. No one learns anymore. I mean, heck, Tom Landry used to put 50 players on the injured reserve list during training camp because he knew they were good.
Yeah.
He didn't want to lose them.
True.
You have a hangnail, injured reserve. See you next year. Because then you didn't come off injured reserve. You stayed around, you trained, and you learned the Dallas Cowboy way, or whatever team it might have been. Anyway,
and at least get a good vibe on who this player is, right? Is he worth keeping? Tonight we got Notre Dame and Ohio State. Me being a lifelong Notre Dame fan, want them to win very badly, but I don't know, Bobby. I don't know if they can match up to Ohio State. They're going to have to turn over the ball. Yeah, they're going to have to turn over the ball, score on defense, score on special teams. Ohio State is a very, very good team.
No, they are, and they got beat by Michigan, and that was the best. Sometimes you lose a game during the course of a season, and it's the best thing that could ever happen to you. And I think that's might have what happened to Ohio State. They lost the game, and they got their focus back. The coach got the players' attention, and here you are. You're off and running maybe to a national title, but Notre Dame may have something to say about that tonight. It should be fun.
I hope so. I hope they have a lot to say about it.
Commanders Lions. You want to speak about that a little bit?
I was going to talk about the Commanders Lions a little bit. I don't know if Jared Goff is a franchise quarterback. And, a franchise quarterback does things to lift you over the top, right? Josh Allen will make a play that will win the game for you. Joe Burrows will do that. Of course, Patrick Mahomes would do that. Even Jackson will do that. Goff has a problem, and he's had that problem since he's been in the league. He's good. He's very good. But when it comes down to it, though, Bobby, I mean, he's not elevating the team. He has so many weapons around him. There is no reason why Detroit should not be in the Super Bowl this year, and they're not going to be.
I agree. No, my heart, it's so funny. I remember years ago, there's a little sports pub down the road from me here, and there was a Lions fan that was always in there. He'd always his Lions jersey on, watch the Lions game. And he'd always say to me, boy, I wish there was Lions fans who lived in this area so I could sit around watching the game with somebody. I felt bad for a fan like that the other day.
Yeah.
I mean, the Commanders are from the NFC East. The Eagles are from the NFC East. I remember back in September, we said we might just get one team in the playoffs. Heck, we got two teams in the championship game.
Right.
From our division. So that bodes well for the NFC East and the talent that's in that division. That being said, that game was, I think, the funnest game to watch was that game because I love to watch offense. And they were back and forth all day long. I mean, Goff didn't make enough plays. Daniels made more plays. It goes back. Who's going to make the most plays? Especially, it's so magnified when you get in the playoffs. Who's going to make those 3 or 4 or 5 plays that are going to put us over the top? And Goff didn't make any of them. Well, Goff played a good game. He made some good throws, but he wasn't Patrick Mahomes falling down and throwing the ball.
Yeah. He's not Josh Allen running to the end zone at the end of the,
no,
putting out the game. I mean, listen, I'm not. He's a very good quarterback. Listen, Jaden Daniels. I mean, I love the kid. He's ice. I mean, he's more ice than Matt Ryan to me right now. I mean, the kid is just. It doesn't seem like anything bothers him, and he's hard to play with. But listen, you're going to count the Redskins' weapons compared to the Detroit Lions' weapons? Come on, you can't. So
I like that you called them the Redskins too.
I love calling them the Redskins. I do like that.
No, I agree with you. Detroit is the best. I thought going in they were my pick to win the whole thing. Now that I said to you last week that the Eagles score whenever they win 13 games, they go to Super Bowl. So my prediction of winning 13 games will come true. So they will win next week against the Commanders, and because they won 13 games. So that was the jumping off point for me. Once I saw that, okay, well then they're going to the Super Bowl. So it didn't matter if Detroit won or not. The Eagles were going to the Super Bowl, much to my chagrin because I hate the Eagles.
And listen, I don't guarantee nothing. I think the Commanders, they can beat the Eagles. They got to outscore them. They just can't play defense with them. They won't be able to do that. They have to play them like they did the second game. It's going to be like if the Commanders win, it's 38-35, something like that. That's how they're going to have to
be like the Lions game. It'll be Daniels was just under his feet. Obviously, he's going to just do his feet anyways. Yeah. He's going to run. But on the other side of the ball, Hurts is going to run too. And Saquon Barkley's going to run too. So,
he did get hurt. Hurts did get hurt. He did get hurt. We'll see how that plays out for him.
Turn it and hand it to Barkley. Let him run.
Well, definitely. Listen, being a Giant fan, and I get this all the time. Oh, are you upset that Saquon left? No, I'm not upset. I'm good for him. I'm happy for the guy. I mean, I'm glad he gets a chance to go and move on to the NFC Championship and maybe to the Super Bowl. I wish the guy all the luck in the world. I was happy for Tarkin when he left and went to the Vikings and went to the Super Bowl. I watched Tarkin just to, I rooted for the Vikings with Tarkin. I don't know if I root for the Eagles. That's tough. I can't do it. I can't.
I have green on, but this is because it's an Irish sweatshirt, so that's not really
Yes. And you do look good in it too, Milady. So,
thank you.
Let's see. We'll have more to talk about next week. We still got the the Giants trivia coming up. Of course, the coaching will keep going on with the coaching thing. We'll have, of course, the division games, the championships to talk about. We'll see. Can the Eagles go to the Super Bowl? Maybe. Can Washington and Buffalo play each other in the Super Bowl? That would be awesome, right?
Who do you like? Who do you like in the AFC? Who do you like? I know we got two. We only got a couple of minutes left here.
Oh, who do you like? In the beginning of the year, I wanted the Chiefs to win. I now hate the Chiefs. I just hate the Chiefs. I do not like the Chiefs. I don't want them to get to the Super Bowl. I want Buffalo to beat them. I know it's going to happen, but I really want Buffalo to beat them. I want to beat them bad. I just don't like the way Patrick Mahomes acts on the field anymore. His slowing down to try to get hit on the sidelines, his late slides.
That penalty was awful.
Fake going out of bounds, running up the sidelines. I'm tired of his shenanigans. There's an Irish word for you. Tired of his shenanigans. And, I'm really tired of it. I like Travis Kelce. I like Pacheco. I like Brown. I just don't like Mahomes anymore. I really don't. I think Mahomes gets away with too much stuff, and I would love to see Buffalo put it on him. I really would. Yeah, no,
I think Buffalo's going to win the game. So I think they'll represent the AFC, and I think that Commanders-Eagles game is going to be a great game. I think Barkley will be the difference in that game.
Probably.
I think with Barkley and the Eagles defense, their skill position players on the outside are really great. I like the Eagles, but in a close game.
I don't know what the Rams were thinking, the way they were lining up with Barkley with the ball, with that one safety going to try and tackle Barkley. I didn't understand it. Barkley before the play said, turn to Hurts, and either said, watch this or you'll like this. You could read his lips. Something this. Either watch this or you'll like this. He hands it off to him. He runs for a touch. It's like he knew it.
Yeah.
And I hope the Redskins come up with a better plan than the Rams did on defense of slowing down Barkley. Because, you could talk about Henry all you want. Barkley with that offensive line, and Baltimore has a pretty good offensive line too. Barkley is the best running back right now in both conferences easily.
And he will be the difference on Sunday.
Very possible, Bobby. I would love to see Washington get in and beat the Eagles. But if Barkley goes in, I'll be rooting for Barkley individually anyway.
Yeah. So. I want to see him. I want to see him do well. I really don't. As far as the Commanders or the Eagles, I hate both teams. Being an NFC East lover, so all three of the teams in my conference cannot lose enough games for me. So it's killing me that one of them would be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl.
All right. So Dallas, Eagles, or Redskins, who's your favorite out of those three? If I put a gun to your head,
favorite, like who I hate the least?
Yes,
probably Washington.
There you go. I'm with you.
Probably.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the views, the likes, hopefully the shares later. We love talking Giants football. We love having you in there and watching us ramble on about the New York Giants, who at one time, believe it or not, won a few Super Bowls. And they went. I know. Who knew? Hell, they went to 5. They won 4. Yeah. So
well, 4-1 is a nice record in the Super Bowl.
It is. It definitely is. And hopefully, after they get rid of their coach and GM, maybe they'll do it again. So we'll see what happens.
We gotta wait a couple more years.
We have to.
Oh my God!
Right, Bob. That's me, the Mac Man, and my brother, Big Bobby G, coming at you every Monday at 5 p.m. Again, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.